Today, next to the ultra cool LED lights that give a huge 80s effect, we'll be talking about snakes, and in particular snakes in Masters of the Universe. And you might know who this guy is, more about him later. But snakes have a really cool role in Masters of the Universe. But snakes are also kind of this evil animal, and this is also a theme that's often used in the metal scene because of course it fits very well with the music. So more about snakes in metal soon. Now a little bit of snakes in Masters. In the 80s you had to be lucky enough to find out if there were any new figures by getting a hold of magazines, and one of the coolest memories I've got is the summer vacation where I got to borrow all kinds of Donald Ducks that a good friend of mine called Buddy had a subscription on. And I used to collect all the information in those Donald Ducks about, for example, Transformers, but also He-Man. And it's in these magazines that I learned a lot about new stuff coming in. It was just magical to see that and to think, oh man, how cool would those figures look in real life? Now obviously, Mattel thought about that as well. And even in our local toy store, that was very little, you did have the little toy magazines. And this is, for example, the 1987 magazine. This is where I learned about the Snake Man. Let's take a look at the original Snake Man. And of course, one of them was Cobra Khan, even before we knew about the Snake Man. And I won't go too much into the details of the origins. There are many videos who do that way better. But Cobra Khan, in one version, was the one who freed King Hiss and his army to come back from the past and take over Eternia. And when you look at King Hiss, he looks like a heroic warrior. But underneath his skin, there is a mighty serpent. And actually all of these Snake Men, like Rattler here, have pretty cool action figures. Rattler even rattles. How cool is that? Now, Squeeze might be a little bit of a weird action figure, not really fitting into the line, but sure was fun to play with. Now, this is the biggest misconception because this creature is part of the Snake Man, Tongue Lasher, but he is actually a toad. I only found that out recently, so don't be ashamed if you don't know about that. Here we've got Snake Face. And I remember I only found out about this one really in the end of the 90s, and a girl from Belgium, Kim, actually found this one for me in a little store, and it was such a cool present, and I still think it's one of the coolest additions to the Snake Man. Well, there they are together, the vintage Snake Man, a brute force. If you look at what happened afterwards in the 200X line, there was lots more that had to do with snakes. And one of the more exclusive figures is Snake Tila, under the spell of the Snake Man. Of course, there's another rendition of King Hiss. Pretty cool figure this time. Looks more evil this time in his normal outfit as well. We've got Cobra Khan. We've got Rattler, in this case the General. And they didn't get to some of the Snake Men toy-wise, but they did make statues like Tongue Lasher. He is mighty. It's a super cool statue. Just like Snake Face, a little bit smaller, but look at the details. Wow. And also Squeeze looks way more menacing. I always like to 200X. I think the details are incredible, but they really stand out when you put them all together. And in the 200X line, they had a huge role. You will probably think I've gone a little bit insane here. I did install LED lights, LED strips, and some stars in the ceiling to get this wonderful 80s vibe back, and I'm loving it. What can I say? Take a look. I mean, doesn't this look like a Spielberg room? It's my dream room. Anyway, this is a snake-themed episode, and when I think about snakes and when I think about metal, I've got definitely 3 albums in mind. One is the mighty Pantera, the great Southern Trendkill album. Of course, it's got this snake on the cover, and it is just such an amazing album. It is so brutal, so heavy, even for Pantera standards. It was quite the explosion when it was released, and it had to grow on me, I'll be honest. I liked Far Beyond Driven, and when the great Southern Trendkill was released, it was so brutal that it really took me some time, especially Phil's vocals. He was screaming all the time. It's one of those metal albums that takes everything a step further and that influences bands to do the same thing. And it was kind of a reaction to the trend where radio stations wouldn't play metal anymore. It was just an insane album. Check it out. On the background, you'll hear me play some of those guitar riffs. I think they're amazing, and I think it's Pantera's, for me personally, #1 album, where Dimebag also really showed some of his real blues skills. And it might not sound like blues when you listen to it the first time, but listen to the grooves, listen to the riffs, listen to the solos, and you'll hear a lot of the blues-based material. What a great album. One of the Snakemen in my collection that I'm absolutely the most proud of is Camouflage Cobra Khan, made in Argentina. Now look at that. Golden hands, golden boots. How cool is this figure? I have to say, I don't really dare to touch it. I'm afraid it'll fall apart. But this is, without any doubt for me, one of the coolest variants ever, maybe next to the Leo Faker. But man, what was I happy when I acquired them, I think 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. Such a cool figure, and I'll keep this one forever. As I mentioned before, the 200X line really gave a super nice feature of the Snakeman, and we could really learn a lot about the origins. And a lot of figures were created to actually fight those Snakemen. So I would say the 200X line is the line to go to when you want to learn more about these slithery creatures and about the power they had, the history, and also about the figures they made to either fight against them or fight with them. Now the next album that comes to mind when it comes to metal and snakes is definitely Testament's Brotherhood of the Snake. And this is also one of these albums, when you compare this to the earlier albums of Testament, this is way heavier, maybe even a little bit more technical. But in my opinion, The Gathering is my favorite Testament album when it comes to brutality, when it comes to groove. I do like Brotherhood of the Snake though, because it's got this melodic vibe to it, but still rhythmically interesting. And I think Testament is one of these bands, they just can't write a bad album. It's all good, it's all technically good, it's all technically profound, it's heavy, it's actually, maybe you can call Testament the masters of thrash. I think they should definitely have been part of the Big Four tour. They are one of the big four thrash bands in my opinion, and Brotherhood of the Snake is one of those examples. To this album and enjoy it, you won't regret. Snakes even play a big role in the vintage Masters of the Universe playsets. Of course, we all know this cool snake here in Skeletor's domain. But if we look a little bit further, we witness the snake of the Eternia playset, and I've seen that the new Origins Eternia playset will have a snake that can even attack. I'm absolutely looking forward to that. That's not the only snake. When we look at the Fright Zone, we've got this puppet, and you might see mine is in a pretty bad state now, but it still displays cool. Unfortunately, the material doesn't really hold up, but what a cool figure. Funny enough, the new Adventures line did really not focus a lot on snakes, and maybe the only figure that comes remotely close is Lizard, but yeah, it's a lizard, it's not a snake. However, we just learned that Tom Lasher was a toad, so hey, he could be part of the Snake Man. The last album I want to mention that belongs to the snake-themed episode is not a brutal metal album. It's also not a specific album, it's a band, and it's Whitesnake. And Whitesnake was one of these bands that I definitely placed right into the He-Man era when I still played with those figures. And I might have been a little bit too old already, maybe, I don't know, but the 1987 album of Whitesnake really blew my mind. It was right there with Europe, Final Countdown, and Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. And it had just those amazing solos by John Sykes. And those songs had so much atmosphere. If you wanna hear 80s, you should check out that album. The keyboards, the guitars, the vocals, the themes of the songs. In my opinion, maybe not the most purest Whitesnake album, but definitely the best album that Whitesnake has done. Also, when you listen to the guitar work and the production overall, listen to it and listen to the ballads, listen to that amazing sound, and you know exactly what I mean with returning to the 80s. One of the cool things about making those videos is that you can play with the figures again the way they're supposed to be played with. So they had their time outside of their spaces, but now I gotta put them back. I really hope you had fun watching this video when it comes to snakes and Masters of the Universe and metal, and I hope you can check out the albums as well. Have a great day.